Hi, welcome to Module 3. So if you're here, then hopefully you've already completed Module 1, where we were looking at the self and the time audit, looking in a lot more detail at barriers and solutions to those issues. And then into Module 2, we were looking at benchmarking ourselves, keeping a training log, and looking at accountability and apps. So in Module 3, probably the biggest module on the course, this is all about the actual training itself. So this is all about running and the practical side of actually getting out there and running. So there's an awful lot to cover, as you can probably imagine. So in this module, we're going to be talking about preparation at the start of a workout, preparation before a workout. We're going to be thinking about key training principles, of which I'm going to talk to you in a moment about general training. We're also going to be looking at lots of different running drills, which are part of your warm-up, and probably lots more besides as well. So there's a huge amount of value in this particular module, lots and lots for you to process and learn. So you may want to just pause the video now and get yourself a pen and a bit of paper, but just to make notes as you're going through this video, but also the following videos in this module. So in this video, I just wanted to talk about the general training principles that you need to understand that give you a context for everything that you're going to be doing in terms of exercise, not just running. And these 5 principles are called specificity, overload, rest, adaptation, and reversibility. And I'm going to tackle each of those in turn, just so you have a basic understanding of what each of those 5 training principles mean. So the first one, specificity, this is talking about making sure that everything you're doing in terms of your exercise is tailored towards helping you become better at the activity you're doing. So in this case, running. So for running, we are primarily going to be trying to improve mobility of your ankles, your knees, and your hips. So we're also going to be predominantly focused on the lower body because we use our legs massively when we're running. We will also be working our core muscles because that helps with stability and balance and therefore coordination and efficiency. And we will also not be neglecting our upper body because when you're running along, you may have experienced this before, but when you're running for any length of time, you can start to fatigue in your shoulders, in your neck. You can have that horrible niggly pain in your neck and in your arms as well. So it's important that we still work those areas, but not nearly as much or as frequently as our legs that we're going to need to. So that's specificity. So obviously for running, what we're going to focus on is very different to, say, perhaps what someone who does rowing or rugby or weightlifting would necessarily focus completely on. The next term was overload. Now, overload is a principle, I call it the Goldilocks principle, because it's very, very difficult to get the degree of overload correct. So overload means helping your body in your training to push it past what it is already capable of doing. Now, the difficulty there is that everybody can be overloaded to a different degree and be able to be okay with that. What therefore is difficult is gauging how much you can overload your body before you then rest and recover and adapt without getting injured. So that's the key principle is, yes, you need to overload your body in terms of the training stimulus in order to improve. Otherwise, you'll just stay where you are right now. But how much of a degree of overload is important to be really mindful of so that you don't get injured and you don't get chronic fatigue and therefore get overload or overuse injuries like stress fractures and things like that. How you can overload your body. So there are different methods that we can use to in your training to overload your body, and I call those the fit factors. So we've got frequency, we've got intensity, and we've got time. So in terms of frequency, this is where we're talking about the number of repetitions, for example, in an interval session, or generally just how often you do something. All right, so if you're thinking about how many sit-ups you do, or how many push-ups, or how many squats you do. Intensity is about the effort level that is involved in that particular workout or session. And then time can relate to two different things. So time can be the amount of time that you are actively performing the task, or it can mean time in terms of how long the recovery is in between doing a task, resting, and then doing the next task in a workout. All right. So excessive overload is something that you need to just be very wary of, and be realistic as well. You know, one of the things that I talk about a lot is the fact that you can't win training. So there's no point being really macho and toughing a workout out if actually you can start to feel a niggle, things are seizing up, and you know that actually it's going to just be painful carrying on. You're better off at that point deciding to stop and enjoy the benefits from that particular amount of training you've done up to that point, so that you're good to go again. The last thing you want to do is keep trying to run through an injury, because you're just going to exacerbate it and make it worse. The next principle is rest and recovery. Now, I can't emphasize just how important this is, all right? In this day and age, you've probably heard or read about people who go on running streaks, who run every day. There's Red January, run every day in January, or any other month. People who've run for 5,000 days without a break and things like that. They are the minority. I know it might not sound like it because they're always in the press, but they are absolutely in the minority. And no doubt they will have been injured through that time and run through it anyway, and therefore compromise their longevity in terms of being able to keep running. Rest and recovery makes up more than 50% of your training week. So if you think about how many hours you're actually going to ever spend running in a week, probably in single figures, compare that to how much time you actually spend not running, and you see just the importance that it can be. So it's really important that you do rest and recover properly. And that doesn't mean just doing lots of exercise but less intense. It means actually giving your body a break, because it's only in those rest and recovery times that your body has an opportunity to adapt to the training that the stimulus that you've already given it. So if you never allow your body to repair and recover fully, you're compromising every workout you've just done. It doesn't seem to make sense, does it, to compromise the hard workout that you may have done yesterday by then going out again the day after without having let your body recover from that session. Because it just seems like an absolute waste of your effort in the first place if every workout you're only going to get half the potential benefit from because you go out again. So it's really important to understand that concept and make sure that you are giving your body enough rest and recovery. I can't stress that enough. I could bang on and bang on and bang on about it, but there's so many people I know who don't, and then wonder why they're injured. Okay, don't become one of those people as well. In the last 6 years, I think I've been injured twice, whereas most runners I know have been injured twice a year, at least every year in the same 6-year period. So please go with my own experience, go with the experience of my athletes that I work with, and stay away from injury, okay? And then the final training principle I wanted to talk to you about on this video is adaptation. So this is important to understand, that we all respond differently to the same training stimulus. So me and all of you could do exactly the same workout. Some of us would be ready to go again the next day. Some of us would take 3 days to recover from it. Also, in terms of the benefit from a fitness point of view, it might benefit me hardly at all, but it might benefit somebody else massively. So the next time you go out, you might see a huge improvement in quite a short amount of time, okay? So this is why it's so important that you don't compare your training progress with somebody else. You're all genetically different, and therefore you are going to respond differently to exercise as well. There's a really interesting book that I've recently read called The Sports Gene by David Epstein. And if you're interested in how your genes can help and hinder you in terms of your exercise and fitness levels, thoroughly recommend that you have a look at that and read it, and especially if you want to learn more about this whole thing. So it talks a lot about how your genes can massively determine which kind of sports you're more likely to do well in than others. Some really fascinating case studies and examples about weightlifters needing to have really long arms and short bodies in order to get the weights up, or basketball players, where just because you're really tall doesn't mean that you're going to be really successful. What is more of a factor for basketball players is how long their arms are in relation to the rest of their body, because it helps them intercept and be able to shoot over the top of other people. So that's just two really small examples of the kind of gems of information you can find in the book called The Sports Gene by David Epstein. I'd really recommend you have a look at that. And then the final factor of these general training principles is called reversibility. So here it's really important to know that if you stop training straight away, then the decline in your fitness is going to start straight away. All right, you're not going to lose it completely overnight, but there will be a gradual decline over time from the time that you stop exercising. Now, there was a really interesting study done on an Olympic rower who, after the Sydney Olympic Games, decided to give himself 8 weeks of complete rest. So he did his normal, whatever you'd normally do in a day in terms of taking the dog for a walk, going down to the shops, whatever else. But there was no formal workout routine. There were no weights, there was no running, there was no rowing, anything like that. And what they found in that study was that while he stopped activity for 8 weeks, it took him 20 weeks to regain that fitness level again. So really interesting to see just how long it can take you to get back to a level that you were at before if you don't do anything whatsoever. Now, if you just do a small fraction of the work you were doing before, that will massively halt or limit and reduce the decline in your fitness. So you don't have to do very much at all to make sure that you keep a good level of fitness. So I would say if you do feel like you've lost your mojo or need a few weeks off, 2 or 3 weeks, I'd say absolute maximum, before then trying to get out and do some more exercise again, so that you kind of reduce that decline in your overall fitness. So that is the general training principles to remember. So we've got specificity, overload, rest and recovery, adaptation, and reversibility. Okay, I will see you on the next video.